Lots of people don't see property as a business. It is, and within that business, there's so many different skill sets you need. Business is just as, if not more important than the property knowledge as well. Even if you try it and it didn't work, even if you try it and you don't like it, at least you've taken that step. You need to wear every single hat at the start to understand what you are and you aren't good at. Like, there might be skills that you haven't unlocked yet. Who is that ideal client that you see yourself working with? If I'm a relationship builder and you're not, I'm a social butterfly and you don't like going networking, my strategy and looking up to me isn't going to work for you. But if you are Mr. Analytical, facts, figures, financials, there's going to be buyers out there that gravitate towards someone who works like that. It's understanding what's your skill set and who do you think would most relate to you. And then you build a business around attracting that person. And it's really simple. All you do is you just...
Mark your calendars. The 2025 Property Developer Show is coming to 5 major cities across the UK, bringing the best service providers and developers together under one roof. On the 5th of March, we kick off in the first show at Milton Keynes, followed by Bristol on the 30th of April, Birmingham on the 16th of July, and then we're heading north to Manchester on the 10th of September, followed by our final stop in Newcastle upon Tyne on the 15th of October. Don't miss out on connecting with other developers, service providers, and industry leaders. Visit propertydevelopershow.co.uk to book your free ticket today. Welcome to another episode of the Property Developer Show, the podcast. Today, I'm joined by Paul Stapleton, who is a multiple business owner, business coach, property coach. He runs Property Entrepreneur Summit. He also runs Peak Performance. He also runs a sourcing business in between everything else that he's got going on. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you, mate.
So starting from the top in terms of my question, I guess, that's normally where we start. Where did the idea for Property Entrepreneur Summit come from? And what kind of, for people that maybe you've never heard of it, what is it firstly? And then also, where did that idea kind of come from and the development of that idea as well?
So before I was in property, I was in sales. So I was a business and sales coach for businesses. So my approach to property is quite methodical rather than from a position of being knowledgeable in property. So property for me was secondary rather than property being the main part. And then sales is like a bolt-on. And lots of people educate themselves so much on property and they go to lots of events and they've always got that shiny penny that's shown in front of them. So today I'm a social housing expert, but I've just heard about supported living at this month's networking event. And they jump on it. And because they're only ever educating themselves at the same events in property strategy, the events are obviously trying to make it different every month. So they're always being shown all these different ways of doing it. And they never really amount to much because they're always chopping and changing. So for me, I wanted to change the narrative that stop educating yourself on property once you understand the strategy that you want to do. And start educating yourself on business, because business is the only way that you're going to scale that business properly. Because again, lots of people don't see property as a business. It is, and within that business, there's so many different skill sets you need. Unless you're educating yourself on it, you're going to be wasting loads of money by outsourcing it. So they're my two passions. And I wanted to create some sort of hybrid event which attracted property people in. So the morning part is property, but then we bolt on business entrepreneurship in the second half, because if we decided to launch a business event to people within property, we wouldn't get the turnout because mindset just isn't there yet. But what I think is most encouraging, and you probably felt the same when you came, most people get more value out of the second half of the day, and they're really surprised how much they enjoyed the second half. They were super excited to come and hear Simon Zucci, Sad Hussein, Rob Moore, people like that. But they come away learning so much more from people that they never heard of and skills that they never knew that they needed in their business. And it also exposes them as well. It makes it like they're relating to things that people are saying and they're like, Christ, that's me. That's what I need to change. So I'd like to think that we've introduced something that wasn't available, and we've hit 2024 ground running with 2 sellout events.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously had the privilege of being at both, and I think You say the business talks, no one had ever heard of them, but you did have Daniel Priestley and James Sinclair, obviously
We
two
did,
big
yeah,
characters within the business world for sure. And I think the quality that was delivered at those events for such a compact day, I think I'm not aware of anything kind of similar that's offering that. Firstly, that entry level value plus the value for the whole day as well. Obviously, you get economy of scale with more people being there and amphitheatre style seating. But I think the quality of the event was amazing, to be honest. For the fact you've only done the first two this year, which is why I wanted to start with that question. What kind of goes on behind the scenes that people often don't see at these events?
Stress.
Yeah.
Look, if you think property's hard and you're always putting fires out in property, do an event, because on the day you are like a swan. You are elegant on top, but you are kicking like mad underneath, and you're constantly putting fires out. And I think the great thing is that a lot of people don't see that. So you come away from that event feeling sometimes disheartened, and you think, I'm really disappointed in this. But the thing is, when you talk to people, they're not even aware of the things that you see as problems as being problems. They've come away with some huge value. But there are logistical nightmares with events as well. And unless you're doing an event where you're selling high ticket education, you can't afford to hire someone to take that burden off of you and hire teams to do it. So you have to wear every hat within that business. You have to be the person that even helps set up the stands and stuff like that. But then that's where the affordability comes into it. The people that we're wanting to attract to these events are the people that can afford £99 to attend an event. We're looking to help that level of person rather than the £500 event kind of people. We may potentially do one of those kind of events at a later stage, but for us, it's about getting it out to the masses and really educating people at a lower level within property that business is just as, if not more important than the property knowledge as well.
For sure. What do you think makes a successful event?
No selling. I definitely think that it's kind of like going to the cinema and there being adverts. Like it just distracts you from what you're going there for. So for me, I think no selling is really, really important. I think having a mixture of speakers, having the superstars there, because superstars add that kind of, what's the word, like razzmatazz around going to an amazing event and meeting your idol. But I think having smaller speakers that are more relatable as well is really important, because a lot of us can't compare to the Rob Moores, the James Sinclairs, the Daniel Priestleys. We're not at that level, and sometimes some of us would never aspire to be at that level or even imagine we could be at that level. But having someone who's maybe just hit their first million is a more achievable person to look up to, and we can relate to their story a little bit more, because where they are in their journey is maybe only 5 years ahead of us, rather than the Daniel Priestleys, the Rob Moores that are 15, 20 years in front of us and started out in a very different climate.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think some events you kind of do sit through the adverts first and then listen to the main speakers, be it monthly events or bigger events in some regards. But I think, you certainly, that balance that you created at the Property Entrepreneur Summit, I think works really well. That, you've got the likes of James Sinclair that, is a business owner, multi-millionaire, very successful personnel. But then you've got, the smaller speakers that are attainable. You feel like you can reach out and touch them, and they're not too far in the distance. So I think, it's really sort of credit to that setup in terms of what you, I suppose, have put in on the back end to deliver that successful event. In terms of like the people that are attending it, then, you've kind of alluded to the kind of shiny penny, get really excited, but never really take any action. Do you think that is a sort of procrastination within the sector? Do you think those individuals are afraid to take risks? Like, what's your opinion on that kind of not outlook, but that kind of behavior, if we call it that?
I think it's a mixture, because everyone's different, right? Like I train a lot of people, And you have the people that have great intentions of getting started, but then life happens and they don't get started.
Mm-hmm.
You have the people that are too scared to get started. So what they do is they keep educating themselves because they say, I'm still learning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have the people that are scared of the what ifs. What if it doesn't work? Well, it probably won't work, but you learn from that. You go again. There's so many different demographics of people that are not doing what they need to be doing for various reasons. But I think, again, that's where that business side of the event, where you could have someone talking about mindset, personal development, positivity, which is that kick up the backside, not just now you know everything in property, go out and do it. For some people, they don't have the mindset to go out and do that.
Mm-hmm.
So then having that pep talk from somebody that not in property, but they're in business, but can say like, procrastination is this and this is how you get over it, is that thing that will spur them to go on and do. So there's so many different people out there. I really do think that everyone has a different reason why maybe it hasn't quite worked, but ultimately it is just take the first step.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all in the action. And I'm always shocked how many people invest large sums of money into education and never do anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you try it and it didn't work, even if you try it and you don't like it, at least you've taken that step.
Mm-hmm. What do you think makes a successful individual? Like, you must obviously speak to a lot of people that come to you for mentoring, what have you. Is there a sort of, do you get a census of someone that just, reaches out and you think you are going to be successful versus maybe someone that you're like, this person is going to take a lot of my time to get started? What's kind of the common traits you sort of see in that successful person?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think coming from a sales background and understanding the psychology behind selling is that no matter how good your service or product is, people won't buy from people that they don't like. Mm-hmm. And they'll also be willing to pay more money to work with someone that they like, respect, and relate to as well. So I think traits that you need are going to be that you're likable, that you're a good communicator, that I think someone who's willing to put service before money, because in life, you never get what you want before somebody else gets what they want, right? Mm-hmm. That's what a transactional purchase is. If I want a Kit Kat, I have to pay for it before I get what I want. And that's how business should be. But typically within property sourcing, especially, people want their money before they actually go out and source a product for the investor. And that's the wrong way to do it. And that's the wrong mindset. So if you're looking for longevity within a business and you're looking to be respected and to build a good base, I think you've just got to be an honest, genuine person, likable. Don't hide yourself. Show people this is who I am. This is what I get up to on the weekends. I'm a family man or whatever it might be. And then people will work with you that gravitate towards that kind of either lifestyle. Like some people, they want to gravitate towards the person that's got the Ferrari and is in Dubai and is eating at the best restaurants and lives in a mansion. That's just what some people's motivation is. For other people, they don't want to feel like they're funding someone's lifestyle. Mm. So they'd rather go with someone who is more reliable and relatable and someone that they just feel more comfortable with.
Mm. Yeah, understated, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, what, I suppose, do you think that's a learned skill, or is that something that can be learned if you, in a sense of understanding that? Because I know, obviously, you've just alluded to, there's different types of people, but to actually bring that into the forefront of, I suppose, a sales strategy, marketing strategy, whatever you want to call it, some people will be like a duck to water, other people will find that difficult. Do you think that is a learned skill or something that you're just born with?
I think it's a bit of both, because I think some people are born with social skills. Some people are born with confidence. But you can learn that as well, right? You can put yourself in the deep end and you can go to public speaking courses. Even though you've got no intention of ever being on a stage, that public speaking course will help you in face-to-face interaction. So it is teachable to a certain element. But for me, I think the main thing is when people start my mentoring, it's the first session is all about who is that ideal client that you see yourself working with. So there's no point doing what everyone else is doing, the same marketing strategy, because if I'm a relationship builder and you're not, I'm a social butterfly and you don't like going networking, my strategy and looking up to me isn't going to work for you. But if you are Mr. Analytical, facts, figures, financials, well, then there's going to be buyers out there that gravitate towards someone who works like that. So it's understanding what's your skill set and who do you think would most relate to you. And then you build a business around attracting that person. And it's really simple. All you do is you just create content and you talk about content that attracts that particular person. So if it's not you getting on camera and sharing, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is why you should like me and stuff like that, it will be, right, so let's take a look at this deal. This deal, we put 37,000 in, we refurbished it for 20,000, we refinance for this, and that's going to attract maybe your ideal client, but you need to understand who that is first.
Do you sort of use that across the board then, whether it be the training, Property Entrepreneurs Summit? Because like the Property Entrepreneurs Summit, the sell that is obviously different to, you know, if you're selling to someone individually. Do you find that running those types of events, you're still taking that same approach where people are buying into you, or is that a different type of marketing strategy that you're using behind that, or sales strategy?
Yeah, again, both, because I think there'll be people that buy into you and support you on whatever you do.
Yeah.
So for instance, I've got people that will come to my standalone property event that we host in Manchester because they love property, but then they'll be listening to enough of my content where I'm talking about entrepreneurship that they'll attend a peak performance event, which is focused all around business and entrepreneurship. And I encourage people in property to go to those kind of events, because if their client demographic are busy working professionals that, let's say, live in London, that want to invest in the North, there's no point going to your local networking event if you live in Manchester, because you're not going to find those people. So you've got to take yourself out of your comfort zone. So we cross-sell there. We get people in property coming to the business events that we host in London to meet business owners that may be their next JV, angel investor, or maybe someone that wants to become a property investor. And then it makes it really easy then to sell a hybrid event, which is property and entrepreneurship as well. So they kind of interlink and we're able to cross-sell.
Okay. Yeah. So I think in terms of like the overview, I suppose the core of it's the same, but the approach is slightly different depending on what the product is. And I suppose the cross-sell that you've got in terms of obviously all the stuff that you've kind of got going on.
Yeah. Like, for instance, the Property and Entrepreneur Summit is a broad way of marketing because it covers 100 different things. We might have something about commercial to resi. We might have something about sourcing, something about developments and flips, something about social media, something about marketing. So we've got all those different angles that we can market different times of the month to attract different people. So we actually get people that come to the second half of the day because they're not interested in property, but they're sold on the second part of the day. And then with peak performance, every event is something different. It might be finance, it might be branding, it might be scaling your business, or it might be like the event we've got coming up, which is focused all around using AI to grow your business and YouTube to build multi-million pound sales funnels. So then the marketing is all around that topic. So it's just understanding what the topic is, who would want to buy that, and then reverse engineer it back to a marketing plan. But you've got ChatGPT now, right? You can use that and get it to help you build out your marketing plans.
How are you juggling all of the plates, or spinning all the plates that you've got going on at the moment?
I'm breaking a few plates. I know that. I'm dropping a few. Look, when you enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work. And I've been working since I was 14 years old in my dad's restaurant and on market stands and stuff like that. So I'm not worried about hard work. So quite frequently in the week, I may do a 12, 14 hour day, but it doesn't feel like work to me because I'm enjoying what I'm doing. But it's just being really strict with your time. So I'm really strict within the academy that I won't go over 20 mentees. Once I hit 20 mentees, you go on a waiting list. And that's just because that is the amount of time that I dedicate to that business. Any more, it would either dilute the service that I give them or take me away from one of the other businesses. So it's ensuring that even like with peak performance, I have something in my diary that's fixed every Tuesday with my business partner. It's non-negotiable. So we always have that call. And that's our time to plan, build on peak performance. So it's just making sure that you're blocking out time for different things. But I'm also someone who likes to try and double up my time as well. So if I need to get my steps in, if I need to travel somewhere, what can I do? Like we met on the train coming up. So although I'm traveling to this podcast, I'm sitting there editing a few clips as well to go out from another podcast. So it's just making sure that you're using that time wisely.
Do you feel that sometimes maybe having all the plates that are spinning, like you say, or dropping a few, do you feel sometimes it's difficult because I've found, and I'm trying to use this in my own sort of, I suppose, example in a sense of what I've been exposed to. I found that like last year, started the show, investing in property as well. And I found that not all the time, like sometimes juggling a refurb and trying to get planning gain on a plot of land and running the show at the same time, that I've got enough time for all of it. But then maybe at some point there is a bottleneck that is created where someone needs my attention over here, but then I'm trying to deliver this over here. And I'm like, oh, shit, I haven't got enough time to do both. Do you think that is... How do you sort of combat that in a way? If you do you understand that question?
Yeah. So two ways is, other than the training academy, every other business I have a business partner. What I've learned, because I've had 2 failed business partners, is that you want to ensure that you and your business partner are chalk and cheese. So your skill set are the complete opposites, and then that way there's always it halves the tasks. So I know with peak performance that I am Mr. Logistics, marketing, stuff like that. I know that Aaron is on with creating video content to sell tickets, and he's speaking and getting all of the guest speakers on. So he's off doing that. We're never crossing paths, but he can also pick up the slack on mine if I'm busy. And likewise with him, I can pick up the slack there. So that's really important that you've got 2 different skill sets. So the other part of it is also building teams, and that doesn't have to be like full-time employed people as well. Like I do have people like that, but let's say, for instance, the Property and Entrepreneur Summit, we have 4 VAs in the Philippines. One is graphic design, one deals with any inquiries, one deals with writing all the copyright, and the other one basically manages the other 3. So the great thing about that setup, and lots of people are reluctant to outsource to another country, and they say, what about the time difference? The time difference, again, this is a mindset thing. The time difference is actually a really good benefit, because when I'm in bed, they're awake. So if I set a task when I finish work, I tend to wake up and that's been actioned. So you can outsource relatively cheaply as well. But I think one thing that I say to my mentees is, what is high value, what is high priority, what is low value, what is low priority, and then put all the things that you enjoy in those boxes and all the things that you don't enjoy. And I would typically outsource the things that I don't enjoy that are low value, low quality. So the stuff that's not earning me money, like admin, stuff like that. And then the high value, high quality stuff, as long as that's my skill set, like maybe sales isn't your skill set, but it's high value, high quality. Well, if that's not your skill set, then you outsource that because it's one of the most important parts of the business, or you employ someone in. But if being creative on deals, so you're the person that goes out and finds the deals, but you need someone to raise the finance for those deals. If both of those aren't your skill set, get someone else to do it and then focus your time on the bit that you enjoy doing.
How do you sort of identify your areas of strength? So, I'm completely fresh. I've just had a professional career. I'm looking to get into property. You and I sit down. What kind of questions are you going to ask me as a mentee to extract that information from myself?
So I think the first part is finding out what you think you're good at and what you think you're bad at, and then it is just getting started and just throwing you
good at everything.
Well, then you wouldn't need me.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
But yeah, it's quite funny because before you met me on the train, I was just cutting a clip up from another podcast, and it was focused all around identifying like the things that you're good at, the things that you're not. And I say that in the business, you need to wear every single hat at the start to understand what you are and you aren't good at. Like there might be skills that you haven't unlocked yet that you think you're not good at, but it's because you've never used them, but you actually really enjoy them and you surprise yourself. And also, if you're going to outsource something to someone, you always need to know like how it needs to be done as well. Otherwise, I have no way of sensor checking your work. So I think in the early days, you're going to have to work double hard and wear every hat in the business in order to understand what you are and aren't good at. Because I'm a sales guy and I've always sold to people, but I didn't anticipate coming into property and completely saying, you know what, I want to outsource the sales element of this business. And I think my skill set is actually in identifying properties and working out what creative way we can maximize our money on this. So I completely dropped what was my skill set. I now outsource that and I specialize in finding the deals because I now enjoy that. Maybe you get to a time where you've been doing it for too long that you exhaust that enthusiasm. And sales is one of those things where you need to be enthusiastic, right? If I'm like really dull and I'm trying to sell you a pen, I'm like, and it's a nice pen, it's blue. When in reality, that's not going to get you to buy the pen. Like I have to really sell you the reasons why. I have to be over enthusiastic for you to get excited. It's probably not the right job for me to be doing. So I think you've really got to enjoy it for it to be like your key skill that you're going to employ in the business.
Just very quickly interrupting this episode, have you got a property deal in mind? Want to build or grow your portfolio but unsure how to obtain funding? No problem. At Roma Finance, they love to lend. The borrower-first approach means Roma deliver flexible, tailored solutions that accommodate the diverse needs and experience of developers across residential and commercial projects. With a flexible criteria, Roma take time to understand each borrower's unique circumstances. Roma's attentive team are always equipped to handle and take on your requests. They will guide and support you throughout the property journey. Colleagues and customer relations are the beating heart of their business. Don't forget to explore Roma's website, romafinance.co.uk, for helpful resources, including articles and case studies to guide your financial decisions. Remember, Roma Finance love to lend. Your property goals are only a call or email away. Now back to the episode.
Obviously, when you're sitting down with people, then you're seeing people make good decisions. I imagine you're seeing people make bad decisions as well. What's some of the common themes around the bad decisions, I guess, that people are making in that early stage? And, I imagine you're speaking to experienced people as well, like across the board, whether it be starting out or experienced.
So I think by the time people find me, they've either been on a couple of courses or they've watched a lot of YouTube. And it's really advertised how easy and quick it is to make money in property. You can side hustle to 10 grand quite quickly. And people are too impatient. Like the second that they learn something, they want to go out and start finding investors, finding deals. I think the biggest mistake they make is not building out that customer journey from start to finish. Because what tends to happen is they tend to just wing it all the way. So they find an investor and they're like, right, I need to onboard this investor. Has anyone got an NDA? So you're rushing around, you're trying to get an NDA. And then you send out this 6-page document that you haven't read. So when an investor says, well, I don't really understand 6.A, and they're like, oh, let me have a look. Because they don't even know what it is. And then they don't understand it. So they have to go out and then they go, oh, you know what? Don't worry about that bit. That's not relevant to this property. And the other things that you get is, okay, so they onboard a property. Well, how do you ensure what kind of contract you need to secure a property to make sure the vendor isn't going to go and sell it through someone else as well? So they don't secure the property. Then what happens is it gets sold underneath them. And then what happens when the investor says, yes, I want to go ahead? What documents do you need then? How do you get it into legals? Do you need the property listed online? There's so many things that need to happen for it to be a smooth process. But that deal doesn't go through and it doesn't complete because you weren't prepared for it. And when I started in sales, I was always taught, and you may have heard this, the 6 Ps. Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. And I live by that in every business. Like you have to be prepared for everything. And the only way you can do that is reverse engineering. work out where the end goal is, and then reverse engineer it all the way back to the beginning and work out all the different milestones, all the different obstacles. So my mentees have to have built that out before we get started, because what I don't want them to do is work really hard to find an investor and then mess it up because they don't know what happens next. They don't have their contracts in place. They don't know even how to handle an objection because they've never prepared to overcome that before. So that's really important to me, is building out that customer journey first.
Where's the balance between being prepared but then being too prepared that you don't actually ever do anything?
There is a balance, but I think that's people procrastinating and overthinking.
Because usually, the reason I ask that question, because usually you're one or the other. You're one that never just doesn't prepare. You just jump. That's me. I just jump in feet first and just figure it out as I go along. Whereas other people are like, my partner Amy, she's like 10,000 questions. What if this happens? What if that happens? I need to prepare for that, this, that, and the other. And it seems that there's never really anyone that's kind of in the middle. But I suppose as you as a mentor, that's your job to find that middle.
Yeah, I think the customer journey is like the bare basics that you need to have in place first. And then you'll just learn as you go along. Like for me, I didn't have any formal education when I started in property. So I made a lot of mistakes. And as you know, in property, mistakes are expensive, right? We're not talking pounds, hundreds, we're talking thousands, tens of thousands. So you lose a lot of money, but the benefit of losing a lot of money is that it hurts and you don't want to feel that pain again. So then you put the necessary processes in place. So that initial customer journey is just like a very bare skeleton at the start. And then as you go along, something happens and then you start adding processes to that skeleton. And 10 years down the line, you're still adding new processes because new things are coming in. So it's like a forever evolving model.
Do you think people need those battle scars to be not? I wouldn't say to be successful, but like you say, losing money is painful. Often it only happens once in that type of scenario. But do you feel that if someone doesn't go through that, they maybe get blindsided by something else that is similar but not the same? Like, how do you what's your sort of opinion around?
I think, I mean, like if you do have that battle scar, then it does toughen you up a bit. But the way that I've built out my mentorship is that I'm not teaching people on my successes. I'm teaching them on problems and how I overcame them to prevent them from making those problems. So I think if you've got the right mentor, you can prevent making those problems. But just because you're taught how not to make a problem doesn't mean you won't make it, because some people just think they know better and they run away, and it might be the qualification of an investor. You say to them, look, before you start doing any work, you need sight of their decision in principle, proof of funds. They need to sign an NDA or a non-circumvention agreement. And then and only then should you physically go out and start spending time looking for deals for them. But a lot of them will go, oh yeah, but it was my friend's dad and all of this. Well, still, processes shouldn't change. And then what happens is you go out, you spend 2 weeks looking for deals, you find them a deal, and they let you down because they've got a bad credit score, or they can't secure lending, or all of a sudden that money needs to be earmarked for something else. And you didn't do your processes to eradicate them in the early days. For me, that's people that haven't yet learned the value of their own time. My value for my time is so high now that I won't go to an event, I won't go on certain podcasts if I don't see the value in me going. You just on the fence, but
no comment.
But yeah, like I now have a much higher self-worth of what my value is of my time. And then that also then falls into like outsourcing things. So like going to view properties in Manchester, it's not worth my time to jump on a train for 3 hours to go and view a property, not knowing what the internal conditions are like. So I outsource that for £30 because I don't value my time at £30 an hour. I value it far higher. So if I can outsource something that's below my pound per hour, then I will. But I really do feel that people haven't yet learnt their pound per hour. So they're happy to do work for free, and then people mess them about, and then they can have a sulk about it. But once you understand that your time is valuable, more valuable than money as well, because we can obviously make as much money as we want, but I don't know about you, days fly by, and I wish that there was 8 or 9 days in a week. So I think some people will have to go through that because they're part of that I know better generation. But I do find that I'm working with a lot more people that are kind of that 35 plus. So I don't really have those problems. Like if I say jump, it is a how high, because they trust your judgment and your advice. And if someone is investing money into you, then they are likely to take it more seriously. And I also think there's a massive difference because now we use Stripe as a payment method, but Stripe have now included Klarna. And I do believe that there is a difference in mentality between people that pay physical cash out of their bank account, who take it more seriously, than people that are investing monopoly money credit, because it's not actually their money. Yes, they'll be paying it back, but they haven't earned that money yet. So it's not their hard-earned cash. So a lot of them will do it on credit cards. They will do it on Klarna, and they don't take it seriously, and they don't feel as bad, and they're happy to just keep chipping away every month at it. So I have seen a bit of a difference there as well.
I think I fall within that bracket of that emotional feeling of giving money out. I mean, I was 22, 23 at the time when I paid for training, which was at the time like $5,000. And for me, that was like
big money,
a lot of money for the age.
Like 15 years ago, something like that.
Yeah. 5 years ago. Cheeky. It must be my beard that.
Yeah.
For those that are listening to the audio, I haven't got a beard, so. So yeah, I mean, for me, that like purchase of $5,000, that was like I say burn the boats mentality. Like there was no going back from that point. Like I had to buy a property. That was my objective.
You needed a return on investment. Yeah.
Exactly. And people are like, why have you done that? Like that's great. Even my dad was like, that you're mental, and I was like, look, there's no other option. Like, this has got to work now. Whereas I think, yeah, maybe if I put it on a credit card or Klarna, I don't know whether I'd quite have that same sort of feel of $5,000 leaving my bank account when it's, a quarter of what was in there, sort of thing.
When you've worked hard, it really does have that emotional attachment to it. And I do feel that it's a generational thing because I'm a tiny bit older than you, but I didn't grow up with credit being so readily available. So like if you wanted to buy a car, you had to save up for a car. If you wanted to buy a watch, you had to save up for a watch. Now people are celebrating getting a new car, getting a new watch, but you've only had to work for the deposit. So you've only put 10% down because the rest of it is on finance. So really, have you achieved something that's worth celebrating? Should people be excited for you because you've got a Rolex or you've got a new Mercedes, when in reality it's leased, it's finance? Like it's a very different generation now.
No, definitely. I think the kind of that ethos around materialistic things, I think comes from, centuries of knights winning battles and, getting horses and whatever it was that they won at these events, whether it be, in war or in domestic events. And I think that has rung through for, particularly in Western culture. Now it's like, owning your own house, having the nicest cars, but because credit is so easily accessible, people have fallen into this trap of, having an Apple Watch and Rolex and this, that, and the other, and people think that's a measurement of their success.
I said this on a podcast the other day. We were talking about BRRR and how it's the sexy word on YouTube. Like, this is the strategy, you want to do it. But you think back 2-3 years ago, all the people that were doing BRRR, and finance was cheap, right? So all the deals were stacking based on cheap finance. And then they built a multi-million pound portfolio that they've highly leveraged. They probably only own 10% in that portfolio. Fast forward to today, maybe there's been a price correction in your area. Very easy for a 10% price correction to happen. Or potentially your interest rate now, because your mortgage is up, is 3 times as much as when you secured the property. And I get so many people coming to me saying, I need to sell my property. I'm losing money every month. but the price they need to exit that property, it doesn't stack on the affordability calculator now for buy-to-let mortgages. So you're like, well, we can't sell that for you because someone would have to put 50% deposit in for the affordability calculator. And it's not a seller's market right now. It's a buyer's market when mortgage products aren't great. So like you're kind of stuck with it. Like I know it's not what you want to hear, or you need to kick your tenant out and you need to sell it to a homeowner occupier where the valuation won't be affordability, it will be on the bricks and mortar. So there are lots of people that I'm seeing that whole, I've got a £2 million portfolio that I built in 1 year where they recycled that same amount of money and now unstuck and they don't have a portfolio, or if they do, it's in negative equity.
Yeah. I think people chase the numbers, don't they, in a sense of that, you know, £10 million portfolio. But yes, but you might have a £10 million portfolio, but what is the equity within? That's the most important thing. What is your equity within that deal? Which, to be honest with you, anyone that's filled in our application through the website to come on the podcast, that's one of my questions. Like, what's the type of deal that you've done? What's your equity stake in that? Because I suppose there's other people out there that are like, oh, yeah, I've done £10 million worth of developments, but they only own 5% of that. So
I can tell you my equity stake in my portfolio is 0 because I don't invest in property. I do invest, but I don't buy and hold. So for me, everything I do is high return on investment through assisted sales because it's just not exciting enough for me. I'm not a developer. I don't build from scratch. That's not my skill set, and I know that. So I don't try and do it. So what's the alternative for me is to buy a house and just rent it as a bog standard vanilla buy to let. Well, if I put 40 grand into a buy to let and I net £200 a month, is that exciting for me, or should I stick my 40 grand into one of my other businesses and make a high return on investment? Or do we do an assisted sale where we can make 200, 300, 400% return on investment because there's no purchasing costs?
Yeah, I think it comes down to what your outcome is, or what you want your outcome to be. Because I think there's a place for buy to let, and you know, if you're in a high earning profession that you really enjoy, you're a doctor, dentist, you know, whatever it might be, and you're looking for a way to preserve your capital, and build it, then I think investing in buy to let. I think if you're an entrepreneur that wants to maximize everything, I think buy to let, or I think even buy, refurb, refinance, in my opinion, which is why I stopped doing it and started doing flipping, planning gain, stuff that it's churning my capital quicker, because I can get a quicker ROI than I can by putting capital into a building that's only going to, like you say, pay me 200 quid a month for.
Have you thought of doing assisted sales for flips?
I've tried to negotiate on assisted sales, but I've never done one personally. I've done a lease option that was very profitable. I've secured it 100,000, rented it out on Airbnb for 2 flats for 3 years, and then I sold it to an investor 3 years later for 120,000. So I've done stuff like that, but I've never done an assisted sale per se.
Yeah, they're game changers. They really are, because you think sometimes the difference between a deal working for you and not can be those purchasing costs. Like you think you might pay a source of £4,000, you got your stamp duty, you've got your legals, maybe 2 sets of legals if you've got to get independent legal advice, your mortgage broker fees, arrangement fees, like your valuation. There's so much money. And it's funny because so many people say, oh, I'm making £200 a month profit. But it's like, even in 50 years' time, you're not in profit, because you've got to earn back the associated purchasing costs before you're actually in a proper profit. They're only taking into consideration the mortgage and insurance and stuff like that.
So very quickly, for people that maybe haven't heard of an assisted sale before, what is that?
So the way I put it simply is flipping other people's properties. So you've got a property that you're trying to sell. For whatever reason, it's not selling on the market. Let's say it's a probate and it's the condition isn't good, but you're wanting a price that just doesn't work for an investor to come in and say, right, we're going to need to spend 50 grand on this property to bring it up to a livable standard. But then that would only leave us with a 10 grand margin. So the deal doesn't work, for instance. So, and that's because of the purchasing costs involved and everything like that. So you would approach them and say, look, there's a reason this property isn't selling, and it's to do with the condition. Now, it wouldn't work if we were buying it. And if we do buy it, I'd be offering you a considerably lower price than you're going to want. And I don't really want to insult you. So the alternative is I can get closer to the price that you're asking, but I would need a period of X to come in and make it a saleable property for me to profit from this. And in that time, I would need to do X, Y, and Z to the property. You wouldn't have any involvement from this point until the property completes. So you don't get to choose the buy or anything like that. But we would make the property into the end product that somebody needs so that they could move in turnkey ready. And by doing it this way, your only outlay is going to be the cost of the refurb. So there isn't the solicitor cost, there isn't the mortgage broker cost, there isn't the arrangement or bridging fee cost, and there isn't the stamp duty. So I don't do big ones, again, because I'm not the developer guy. So that's not my skill set. So my risk level is lower. But I'll do the ones that maybe need a lick of paint, new carpets, a new boiler, maybe the EPC rating's too high, stuff like that. So we'll put maybe $5,000 to make 20 grand. And we'll just do small ones like that. But the return on investment is massive. You're looking at 300-400%.
So in terms of the deal structure, how do you mitigate the risk around a kind of, okay, so we agree assisted sale today. How does that sort of work? 12 months to deliver, sell the property. If it doesn't sell within that 12 months, then it goes back to you. Like, how do you sort of mitigate and minimize the risk of doing an assisted sale?
So when I found out about assisted sales, I went, it was kind of like a course. It was just a very short talk on what it was. And the thing I learned is that the more money you stick into one of these, obviously the higher risk it will become, but the profit margins shrank like massively. Like you're talking, you might make 50% or 100%. And to put 50 to 100 grand into a deal to maybe make 50% or 100% might be good for someone who flips. But for me, it was too high risk. So I worked out that the smaller the amount of work that needed to be done on cheaper houses, the bigger the margin you could make. There was a more significant margin. So if you were doing a big assisted sale, you would look to have a contract to secure a second charge on the property, and probably a power of attorney as well, because if you passed away, the contract would be valid with you, but not with your children that inherit it. So there was all of that. But then that adds a massive level of problem trying to negotiate that deal, because we're taking it from being listed with an estate agent to all of a sudden, I'm going to have power of attorney over you and on your property. And also you're going to have another charge on your property as well. And it's a lot easier for someone to say no than it is to get their head around it and understand it. So by doing the cheaper deals means that I can have a much more relaxed contract. So my contract will literally outlay the timescale that I need to carry out the works and to find a buyer. And the fact that if they pull out of the deal whilst I've carried out the works, then I will be invoicing them and they will be liable for the money that's been spent. Now that is riskier, but when you're making 400% on a deal, I personally feel risk over reward is in my favor. And it's no different to investing in the stock market, right? You put in what you can afford to lose, but you don't expect that you're going to lose massive. But if you do 10 of those over the course of a year and 2 don't work out, you're not looking at the 2 that didn't work out. You're saying, well, over the whole year, we're still up by 300%.
Yeah.
So that's how I approach it.
Have you had any deals that kind of haven't gone to plan?
I've had deals whereby we've run out of time on the contract whilst trying to secure a buyer. And you can usually tell, because again, communication is key here, like speaking to them every Friday. So my Fridays, 3 till 5 is, I stop at 3 till 5 and that is my update time. So even if I don't have an update for you, I'm still letting you know that I'm still here and this is what we've done. But I will get a good read of the person, whether I think they will be rubbing their hands together thinking we're going to get a brand new kitchen out of this guy because the clock's running out. Or if they're like, you know what, Paul's really done well in this house for us. And okay, like he's got a buyer, but they're just going through something with their accountant because they can't submit the mortgage app yet. In that instance, you just have to be creative. So I just put one of my friends into legals on the property. And then once the buyer was ready, we just changed the names on the contract. That was the difference between me losing $4,000 and not losing $4,000. So I don't think it's such a bad thing that we had to do that. I think if someone was a nice guy and they could see that you'd spent a lot of money and they were doing well, then you wouldn't need to do that. But if someone's being a bit of an arse and you think they're rubbing their hands together, then I have no problem with being creative around the deal to buy me more time. But no, touch wood, not had one where it hasn't gone to plan and I've put money in and I've lost it.
So in essence then, as long as you've got a buyer lined up, then you can extend the contract by the sounds of
Yeah,
that.
so I had someone, but the problem is when we went to submit the mortgage application, they came back and there was some issues with their accounts that they submitted the previous year.
Right.
So we were waiting for the accountant to do some work and then resubmit it. And obviously that's third party, so I have no control over that. If it was the mortgage broker, I could get on the phone and stick a rocket up there. But yeah, I had no control, and it was quite frustrating because I couldn't give them a time frame. So it almost made it feel like to them maybe he's just trying to buy more time. Maybe there isn't a buyer, like he keeps saying about this accountant, but it's 3 weeks. We've not had any info. So yeah, we had to do it, but it was only for 2 weeks. And let's be honest, not much happens in the first 2 weeks anyway. They're still trying to get together the contract pack. And again, if they're using your recommended solicitor, well, you control how quickly they're responding and how quickly they're requesting the information that's needed as well. So it wasn't a major thing. We just said their business partner's going to put in their name instead and just change the name.
No, it's just being creative, I suppose, just understanding the game.
Yeah. It is a game, right? Property.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. It's a game of chicken.
yeah. In some cases,
especially on your offers as well, right? Like you put a cheeky offer forward, and they say no, this is my minimum, and then you go lower, and it's like who's going to give up first? I think that's what's exciting about it. I think that's why I made that transition from sales to the property side, because I found that quite exciting, quite competitive, and rewarding when you actually it goes in your favor as well.
Who's got the nerves of steel, I suppose. I suppose it's who's got the bigger want and understanding where that sits in that negotiation. That's usually the case in my
But the
experience.
thing is, you need to understand that motivation first, like, because again, it's another mistake that I see people making, but not everyone's motivated by money. Like you're selling your house, but it might not be because you need the money. It could be for a different reason. So you need to understand that reason, and that's what you need to keep pressing on when you're putting your offer forward. So if it's like based on a problem, like if the deal has fallen through twice already because the buyers couldn't complete on it, well, it's not about the money now, is it? It's about the quality of the buyer and how confident we are that this buyer can perform. So I would typically go in at a lower price, but with a fully qualified buyer. So this buyer is ready to go. They've got this amount deposit. Here's their decision in principle. We've worked with them before. They bought 5 properties off of us. I'm confident that these guys will go. But I think the way that maybe an estate agent would qualify them is a lot more relaxed. And even proof of funds, right? If I needed to show 100 grand in my bank, could I call you and just say, do me a favor, can you just ping it to me, and I'll ping it straight back after I've done the screenshot? Like, it's really easy to do that on proof of funds. So there needs to be a level of like trust as well there with your investors, that you built a rapport up with them.
Yeah, no, I think well, it's sales, isn't it, at the end of the day? And I think whether you're speaking to a vendor to understand where their pain points are, what their objections are, because assisted sale might work in one scenario, but then selling a tenanted property.
Oh, you'll do less deals, and there'll be deals where it would work for them, but it's too different to you buying it that they're not willing to do it.
Yeah.
And in my eyes, I always see it as it works in their favor, because yes, I'll be making money from this, but I'm also solving a problem that you've got, which is you actually can't sell this.
Mhm.
So my offer is the best offer on the table that you've had. Because if you had a better offer, you would have taken it.
Mhm.
And what's the worst case scenario that I don't sell the property on? But what's the best case and the worst case scenario for you? You've got a brand new kitchen,
Mhm.
you've got a new bathroom, your house has just been repainted and it's got a new boiler. So I always feel like that it is a win-win. The only difference is some vendors are more interested in how much you're making out of the deal rather than what they're getting out of the deal.
Yeah, of course. Which I suppose then people are just standing in their own way with that regard.
Yeah, because it's money that was never available to you.
Mm.
Because if it was, then you would have already had the offer.
Mhm.
We wouldn't be here 3-6 months down the line having this conversation.
Of course. Good old property games. So if people want to understand the game in a bit more detail and want to maybe get in touch with you, what's the best route for people to reach out?
Yeah, so any of the social platforms, Paul Stapleton, YouTube, Insta, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook.
Can you give any inkling on the next Property and Entrepreneur Summit at all at this stage?
So we have a date. We have a saved a date. It's the 14th or the 16th of June.
Okay.
Back in good old Milton Keynes.
Yeah.
We've got the next episode of the MCR Property Social coming up in March. That's on the 21st of March in Manchester. That is a full-day event. It's a Friday. So we're going to be teaching everything from building your personal brand to raising private finance, HMOs, property sourcing. We're going to have a couple of panels talking about, we're going to have a commercial surveyor on there, so helping you understand valuations, because that's one thing that I think we're all needing to understand a bit more. How is a mortgage valuer actually looking at your property and valuing it? And half the time, why are they so far away from what we think it is? So we've got that. We've got solicitors, mortgage brokers all on the panel, so you can ask questions around that. And then there'll be a nice bit of food and then a night out as well. So we've got that coming up as well. And then peak performance, January the 16th, Central London, VIP dining event, mastermind, 40 people, Central London location, 4-course meal, drinks, 2 incredible speakers talking about AI and YouTube.
Nice. So hopefully someone's got something to do in the new
busy.
year. Then. Definitely.
Or attend all 3.
Yeah. Use my referral code. If people want to find the detail on that, they just go on your profile and they can get all the information.
Go on my profile. There's always, especially my Instagram. Instagram's probably the best one. There'll be something for everyone on there. Every event will be advertised on there, and just DM me if not.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for coming on today.
Thanks for having
making
me,
the trip up as well.
That's all right. It's always good to come up.
A long way from the south coast.
It is. But you know what? Logistically, it's not too bad.
Good. I'm glad to hear. Well, you're welcome on again in the future for sure.
Hold you to that.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you very much to listeners today. Obviously, an intriguing conversation around different property strategies and obviously events as well. Obviously, if you're looking to expand in the property world in some way, shape or form, Paul is someone you certainly need to talk to. Hopefully you've had some value from it. Again, as I say in every episode, please do like and subscribe and leave a review on the audio. We'll hopefully see you again soon. Take care. All the best.